I'm excited for this one. This is going to be fun.
Yeah,
It's been a while since I've actually had people watch me do modeling.
yeah, yeah. We
Uh,
got about 10 years of experience for it, so probably.
I am
So
super
some
well
experience in
caffeinated.
EdgeWise.
So yeah, nope, super well caffeinated. Have my caffeine, so we are ready to rock and roll. So yeah, got my fancy Amazon mouse ready to go, rock and roll. So
Ready to click. Okay. Okay. So I think we are, yeah, I think it's good to kind of start doing some intros and we can jump into it. We want to give Trevor as much time as possible to do the modeling. So I will start with just some basic rules here. So this is going to be the dash. So Trevor is going to spend the next hour or most of the hour modeling in EdgeWise. So at this point, part of this is just kind of showing what EdgeWise can do, how easy it is to use and work with scan data, how much gets done automatically as your starting point, and then what it looks like when we're going to export into Aviva E3D design. So that's kind of the overview here, but throughout this, we will go through and a key part of this is that all participants are going to be muted throughout the presentation. Now, you can ask questions at any point. So we have the questions open. We're excited for questions. In this case, because we're kind of doing this format where it's more of Trevor's going to do his thing and kind of show you what EdgeWise can do, the questions will be open the whole time. We'll kind of try and address questions. We'll have questions for you guys. So we'll have plenty of things. We'll have some polls mixed in just to kind of see, what the audience is up to, experience, process, things like that, just to keep it interesting. The webinar is recorded, so the whole thing is recorded. We'll send you a link after the recording, and usually a couple days after the session, but you will definitely have this on hand. So if you see any neat tricks or anything like that you see Trevor pull off, if you're already using EdgeWise, then you can reference that for later, but it'll be showing the whole workflow. So who's here? So I'll start with me because I'm talking. So my name is Justin Domer. I'm the Senior Product Manager at ClearEdge3D for the core products. So we consider those to be kind of the desktop applications. That'll be EdgeWise, Verity, and Rhythm, and then anything else we do. So that includes, we just released our some new tools that we're working on for some other applications for as-built modeling and point cloud management. So keep an eye on those. But at this point, I will introduce Trevor. So Trevor McGough, tell us about yourself.
hi, so I'm Trevor. I've been at ClearEdge almost for about 10 years now. I do a lot of the modeling. So this is actually a webinar I am super excited for because it's just one of my favorite things to do is just roll up my sleeves and get busy modeling some pipes. So Nate, pass it over to you.
Yeah, thanks, Trevor. Appreciate it. So Nate Bridges here. I work for NavVis. So we specialize in mobile mapping or dynamic scanning, some people like to call it. So both the hardware and the software side. And I've been in the oil and gas industry for over 10 years now. I've done everything from software development to software sales, into project management in the field with survey and scan projects. So I've been here at NavVis for almost 3 years, actually coming up about a month from now. I'll be at 3 years, and happy to be a part of the webinar.
Yeah. Thank you so much for joining, Nate. A big
Thanks for
portion of
having me.
this is definitely trying to kind of show the speed of this workflow. So the speed is on both sides. So for the data collection, this was a data set from the NavVis BLX3, I believe. And so, we'll kind of see the data quality. We'll see how well it works with EdgeWise. And the point here is really focusing on the speed of being able to collect the data exceptionally fast, and then being able to model out of that data and get what you need into E3D as fast as possible. So that's really what this is all about. That's why it's the modeling dash, so we'll see what we can do in an hour here. And as I mentioned briefly, I think Trevor, you're pretty close to 10 years at ClearEdge3D, 10 years with EdgeWise. Is that correct?
Yep, that'll be about correct. It'll be, it was July 2014 was when I joined ClearEdge. So that's always a fun story. So anyone who's going to be at GeoWeek, feel free to ask me about that one. That's always a fun one to talk about over some beers. So
yeah,
sweet. And one thing I do want to also talk about, this data that we are presenting is available off of the NavVis website. So again, highly recommend checking it out. I think it's a really cool data set, and you can basically get the exact same results that I'll be starting with here on the webinar today. So
yeah, awesome.
Very
All
cool.
right, so
real quick anecdote for me, Trevor. I actually started at Aviva in 2014.
Ooh.
So I was working with Aviva back then.
yeah. Nice. So
what-
yeah, some reference here for what we're doing.
Yeah. So I guess the one thing I would say, Justin, if you don't mind, if you could start a quick little timer. So I'll just kind of give a little bit of the flow. I'll do about 30 minutes. My hands are up here, so I've not started yet. So we'll do about 30 minutes on the piping, and I'll jump in. We'll take a look at some structural steel. So yeah, I believe everyone should be able to see my screen right now. And yeah, here is our data. So this is the data. This is on my Intel i9. It took roughly about 45 minutes to process. And now let's go ahead and take a look at the piping. So that is the piping that we've extracted out completely automatically. This is zero human intervention. So again, this is going to be my starting point for my modeling. And with that, now for the best part. So
get into it.
Yep. So with that, kind of talk about, I guess, Trevor's modeling and EdgeWise. The first thing we'll go ahead and do is I like to do a little bit of cleanup. So I can tell there's like some fence posts, stuff like here. A little bit of a long-standing joke over at ClearEdge that in addition to finding you all the pipes in your project, EdgeWise will also find you every fire extinguisher and trash can. Again, primarily it's doing cylinder detection. So I'm just going to go through, kind of do a little bit of cleanup.
Yeah, and the nice part of the model workflow is that you can cut out the point cloud data because it's unified. You can cut it out even before it gets to EdgeWise. So if you're doing any sort of cleanup in the model in the point cloud before actually pushing it over to EdgeWise, that can really also speed things up a lot too.
Yes, and that's one of the most exciting things I think we've done at ClearEdge is the ability to take in like the unified recap project. And again, to me, that really enhances like the users, like, yeah, we can clip things out, go room by room, and be a lot more, I think, surgical with it. So that's another really cool feature that I'm excited that we released. So we have our wonderful PM to thank for that one. Thank you, Justin. So
it's a lot of work from the development team as well, but we heard a lot of requirements. And the other thing with that is we just saw that there was both the workflow advantage of being able to take a unified, a standard terrestrial workflow and unify that, but really also at that time, that's when the VLX really was showing how good it is at creating the data, and we were getting really great results when we were passing in, either a unified point cloud from kind of standard workflows or VLX data, and that was super exciting to us. We were not really shooting for that. We weren't, that wasn't on our radar initially. And then it just worked so well that we were able to kind of see that, and the workflow advantage is significant. I do want to check with Nate. How much do you know about this data set as far as like, it's kind of the workflow that was done from the VLX side?
Yeah, so the workflow on a data set like this, it's pretty simplistic. You're basically going to be wearing the device. I actually don't know if they tied into coordinates or not, but definitely you can and probably should in an industrial environment. And then they're just going to walk through the scope, maybe do some pre-planning beforehand and identify areas where they'll create loop closures for the SLAM technology to operate on, and then walk throughout the scope, traverse at grade, and then each elevated platform therein and tie it all together. It's I would say that this square footage, this is probably less than a day of scanning, might only be an hour or two, just from looking at it. I didn't actually execute the work, but that's my guess. I could definitely check into it, but similar size I've done in about that amount of time.
Gotcha.
So it's a very fast workflow from field execution.
Just on the subject of like, I think tying back to, being excited to see some of the results, kind of as I perform my pipe QA/QC where I'm checking my cylinders against the point cloud, I want to highlight just how good the fits are. I think that's absolutely fantastic. It's something I'm very excited to see as I work my way through this data, that we're getting some pretty spot on. I mean, I'm stopping every once in like a little bit, but overall, I mean, this data, again, I think it speaks for itself, everyone who's seeing it right here. So
yeah, So this is a really nice thing, and this is one of the advantages of EdgeWise is it's a purpose-built tool for scan to BIM, like scan modeling for any sort of workflow. In this case, what we're able to do is Trevor's instantly checking, really, really quickly going through and looking at the geometry that was generated and the points associated with it. So like we can, in that workflow, we're really able to move very quickly to review, what was done generally, and I'm sure Trevor will go into this. We don't recommend, necessarily going and inspecting every single thing. Well, that was fast. Okay, hold on. We gotta hold on that. So that, okay. So what Trevor just hit the button on is Easy Connect, and so this is a really cool tool. The way that EdgeWise works is that we go through and we're looking for cylinders. So we take in the point cloud, and I think the process for this point cloud was about like
about
40
minutes. Yeah,
45 minutes, yeah. And it's computing on your computer, right? So the better your computer, the faster it goes. Yeah, 45 minutes to an hour of scanning, some processing time on the NavVis side, and then about 45 minutes of processing on the data from the EdgeWise side. But we're looking for cylinders, and then we will find kind of cylinders in space, fitted to the point cloud, and then with this Easy Connect tool, it'll go through and very quickly fill in the gaps between connections, including elbows. So we'll see a bunch of that. So like long complicated runs can be done pretty much completely automatically, essentially. It did start absolutely pouring where I am right now, so I'm like a little bit fingers crossed that that I stay online. It's not seen it rain like this before in a while, but so if I disappear, then that's why. But yeah, that's a really cool part of this is that the ability to do these things automatically. And then additionally going through and being able to leverage the manual tools, which are kind of purpose-built for this workflow. So we'll see some tweaks here to just make sure those elbows play nice. This is a part of it, is basically the kind of going back to this purpose-built tools. If you're trying to do these workflows in basically in direct models, like if, in design tools, that can be very difficult to just be able to see down the length of an element and how the point cloud aligns and to make connections, because you may have to define a lot of that, especially in E3D. E3D is a wonderfully complex tool that lets you do anything in it. I mean, it is everything 3D, but going through and being able to jump in these views very quickly, generate geometry is a really powerful part of how EdgeWise works.
I have to say real quick, Trevor, this is mesmerizing watching you work. You're a wizard. I think most of that is the tool's ease of use, but obviously you're pretty familiar as well.
There's certainly a component. I will say that yes, Trevor has 10 years of experience, but the training that we do that Trevor does is about an hour, and you can get very good coverage on understanding how these workflows go. So there's probably some hot tips in here, but everything Trevor's doing is covered in the training and very straightforward. It's going and making connections. It's checking for QA if there's anything that needs to be tweaked, hitting the big button that automatically does stuff, and going through and kind of filling in those sections. So we do have some let's see.
Go ahead, Justin.
Yep. We just have some questions that came in, so I want to kind of grab those while they're coming in, and then I'll do a little bit of a poll here in a second just to see what people are up to and the workflow side of things. So let's see. So for trials, if you're interested in a trial for EdgeWise, because there's some questions on that, basically we'll let you know if you want to take a trial. We can do a trial. We can do demonstration. The goal here is that you work with us on your own data. Obviously, it's demo data. This is kind of the NavVis demo data set. We picked that because we wanted something that people had access to be able to quickly see both NavVis's quality as well as what EdgeWise can do in that. But we're happy to set people up to trials so they can try it on their own data set and try and export the results to your own personal workflow. Let's see. So a question from the VLX side. So how long does it take to learn mapping and processing with VLX versus a static scanner? So Nate, what are your thoughts on kind of the learning curve for mobile scanning in comparison to terrestrial scanning?
Yeah, so the learning curve between the two is going to be vastly different, right? So really the way that we've developed the technology, ease of use, it has always been a common theme with everything we do product-wise. That goes to the hardware and the software side. So on the hardware side, The way our workflow operates in the field, it makes it super simplistic. So the barrier of expertise needed to execute a scan like this is much, much lower. Obviously, there's some training involved. You need to understand how the SLAM algorithm operates and how that functions in the scope that you're working in. But very, very quick. Our training is actually across 2 to 3 days, and most clients after that training session, they're ready to get going and scan their own projects, and that includes the software side as well within that training. So data processing is very hands-off. It's all automated. We have algorithms that handle the majority of that for you. So it's very simplistic, very quick. You all right, Dustin?
I think the power just went out, so the Wi-Fi might drop in a second. Whoa.
Uh-oh. Yeah, it looks like his face is frozen. But Trevor, you're going to have to see the questions for me, but I'll finish answering this one. I can't see them from my. I already had a little bit of a technology faux pas and couldn't get my camera on here. Yeah, but from the software side for data processing, it's all automated. There's a few steps where you have to define certain things like different levels within the site. So this specific site has multiple levels. There's elevated positioning, so you would define the lower and upper bounds of those after the data is processed. But it's pretty hands-off, very quick. Our whole purpose therein is to keep things as simplified and easy to use as possible within NavVis technology. Hopefully that answered the question.
I think it did. And again, I know the NavVis, I think that's one of the cool things it's been, because all the data you guys process is in the cloud, correct?
Yeah, correct. Yeah, it's cloud-based processing and hosting. So the remote collaboration capabilities therein are pretty cool. That's usually the biggest ROI, is that so many stakeholders can collaborate in the cloud globally.
I see it. So that's
but man,
really
it's
awesome.
So cool watching you.
Oh, I hope everyone agrees, because man, right now it's odd having not having music. So that'd actually be something I was kind of curious about. Is
yeah.
Normally I have my little modeling playlist I like to listen to. So if anyone's got any recommendations, I would gladly take that. I usually, so I was talking to Nate and Justin about, I love my go-to modeling song is Pinball Wizard by The Who. Something about it. So
nice.
Yeah.
When I was doing DBA work, database administration, I was usually listening to alternative rock, but I went to high school in the 90s, so it made a lot of sense to me.
My name's Sam, and I was helping out with the promotion of this webinar, but I'm going to kind of just step in and kind of feed these guys some questions, just because Justin's a little bit of technical difficulty right now, and I want to have Trevor be able to focus on the model. Picking up where we left off. Let me just get these open here.
Yeah, appreciate it, Tim. If I could see it, I would manage the questions. Apologies.
Oh, no problem at all.
It's all good.
We have a question here for you, asking what the black part of the piping kind of signifies in the model.
Yes. Yep. So the black part of the piping is basically like connections. So overall, if you're looking at things in EdgeWise that are black, those are things that are not created from point cloud data. So like my elbows, for example, are created by looking at the two adjacent pipes next to them. So, but yeah, the black straight connections, as you guys watch, as I progress through the workflow, we'll actually convert those into like true piping, and then we'll all bring that into E3D, and it'll all come in as, actually fully connected pipes. But the best way to think about it right now is think of things as still kind of like malleable in a way, if that makes sense. So I'm still kind of doing my adjustments, my tweaks, kind of doing my modeling, and that's what kind of those black ones are. So hopefully that answered that one. Like this manifold up here.
Yeah, great stuff. So Nate, another question for you. This one just kind of come in and ask about some of the differences between the VLX2 and the VLX3.
Yeah, sure. So the VLX2 is, it's still one of the top of the line dynamic scanning tools out there on the market. So from the VLX2, you can capture about 600,000 points per second. The range is 100 meters. These all come into play with how the SLAM algorithm operates and how you use unique geometry and vertical elements around you to keep the data tight and make sure that you don't have any kind of drift errors or anything like that can happen in SLAM. With the VLX3, the differentiator is that we've upgraded the LiDAR pucks, and so now you get 1.28 million points per second, and the range is 300 meters. So that's a vastly different capability set. So when you're talking about, as an example, that the unit that he's modeling, that Trevor's modeling right now, if somebody wanted to add on to the unit and extend it out into maybe like an adjacent parking lot or topographic area, with the VLX2, you would just need to make sure that you're close enough to the existing unit to make sure that the SLAM can tie to that geometry. With the VLX3, you can walk further away. It's got better capability to not lose that SLAM algorithm. Also, the data is just in general cleaner for the VLX3 versus the 2, and we're able to achieve better accuracy as well with that increase in data.
Definitely, and we're cleaning it right now with kind of some of the results that Trevor's getting from this automated extract. Been on, I'm seeing a bunch of questions about kind of how we export into various softwares, particularly in this one we're going to be covering E3D. So I'll probably kind of save that, and Trevor can talk through it once he gets to that phase. So we'll cover that shortly. Let me continue digging through.
I have to say, Trevor, this is kind of like as close as you can get to the easy button that I've heard a lot of people say they'd love to have.
Yeah. It's I think EdgeWise is very
technology is incredible.
Oh yeah, no, it's a very unique tool. I mean, I think everyone can just see me kind of hopefully like whipping around here, extracting out pipes and just kind of finding my pipe runs, tracking them through space. You can see like right here, there might be like little deviations. So like I might, this is just kind of this is actually what I really enjoy, which is the actual modeling work. So I think everyone can kind of see me just kind of focusing right here. And there's things like, I think this is an example right here that like I could fiddle with it here, but stuff like this is more around just like, also for the sake of the webinar, I might just leave that for like, an end application like Revit or, EdgeWise is good, but there are things you will have to do, inside of your end application to kind of tweak things or, just little things like that. So, but overall, I mean, as I'm whipping around here, looking at like the different pipes, stuff like that, I think that new VLX data is very impressive. I mean, I think it's a fantastic little instrument just from the kind of results I'm seeing. And that's something I really try to harp on with EdgeWise is, we're only as good as the data. So, good data in, good results out, and just, the importance of having good data collection as a starting point. Actually, to that end, Nate, you mind kind of talking a little bit more about some of the specs on like the NavVis, like as far as like accuracy, what are you guys kind of seeing?
Yeah, absolutely. So using survey control, you can basically expect in a local accuracy aspect around 5 to 6 millimeters, and from a global accuracy aspect about 12 to 15 millimeters. And what I mean by local versus global, actually, Trevor, do you know what that means? Do you know what I mean by that between the two?
Yep, and it's one of those things, just if you don't mind, just like, explain it. I'm sure everyone here is really excited, yeah.
Yeah, so local accuracy would be basically 2 points within a given part of the scope where you can see both points from one perspective. That's how I describe it. And then global would be like on this unit, local accuracy, if you're standing on one of those elevated platforms and you're looking at, maybe an exchanger to your right and then some piping to the left, a few dozen feet away, that would be local accuracy. Global would be some of these elevated platforms back down to a point that's maybe below you at grade that you can't physically see from your perspective. so they're completely distant from each other and disconnected visually, that would be global accuracy. So across the entire data set, definitely significant accuracy. In the industrial environment, I always tell people, you need to make sure that you have the right tool for the job. So the VLX is great for a lot of use cases. A lot of the owner operators I've spoken to say it's somewhere in like the 95% of their use cases, the VLX is viable. There's certainly some use cases where you need that differentiator in accuracy. You need that higher detail, like tie-ins when you're tying into a piping and things like that in a capital project, detailed engineering and design level. You may need to get some surgical data with a terrestrial system.
And do you, like, in your own experience, do you see like, people are using kind of more the VLX in conjunction with their tripod-based systems, kind of more, using multiple instruments on a job site? I guess, what are you guys kind of seeing?
Yeah, it depends on the scope. So traditionally in the oil and gas sector, when that happens, usually the VLX is the first reality capture. So they go out there with the VLX, they'll capture like an entire unit, maybe some pipe racks where utility lines will possibly be routed, get all of that up front early in the project, and then all stakeholders are working in that data. And when you get to the detailed engineering and design phase, that's when you may need some terrestrial tripod-based data around those tie points once they've been identified. And overall, you don't use both reality capture tools at the exact same time, but both on the same project, just different timing, different uses.
Yeah, different tools or different brushes, or all, it's all just tools in the toolkit, I think is one of the things that, we always say.
Mm-hmm. Yes, you don't use a bulldozer when you need a spoon or a shovel, right?
Exactly.
Or vice versa.
No, this is, I gotta say, I'm just having a field day with this data, man. This is like, I don't know if you can see me in the webcam right now. I'm just smiling ear to ear right now, having a ball. So yeah, because I mean, like right now, I mean, just like, just to go over the numbers once again, I think that's absolutely wild. Like a site like this, you can walk under an hour, process it in the cloud, and then bring it with EdgeWise. And I mean, basically you're looking at under, I'd say what, half a day's work. I think that's fair to get to where I'm starting at and just cranking away on it. I mean, shoot, I feel like I'm going at like light speed right now. That's not just the caffeine talking.
Trevor,
it's also the music usually. Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Yeah, I'm seeing a couple questions, people asking about how EdgeWise handles something like valves. Like just non-traditional, maybe not traditional, but just some other elements that might not be automatically extracted through the original processing.
Yep, and so that's, so short answer is EdgeWise can do very basic valves. But a lot of the times, like, especially in like, let's just say like Plant 3D, for example, our end users have a lot more detailed like catalogs of componentry. So when you get down to it, it's actually faster to use EdgeWise to model like the piping, and then use that EdgeWise, or then use your own componentry in your end software like Plant 3D then to place your components instead of having to worry about swapping stuff out. So even though it can do it in a very basic sense, there is a reason that we usually tell. And there's another feature I'll show a little bit later on called Smart Points, which is a really cool little feature where we can actually export out the point cloud data around our pipe runs and then bring that, and we can use then that clipped out point cloud inside of our end application to then help model componentry. So sorry, I'm getting lost in the sauce over here once again.
Okay, I think I'm back.
There he goes.
Yeah, power was down. Power appears to be back, so fingers crossed. What'd I miss?
Good to hear from you. You didn't miss too much. We just answered a few questions and we were kind of chit-chatting. I think Trevor mentioned he's got a favorite song that he plays when he's modeling. Back when I used to do DBA work, I was listening to alternative rock because, grew up as a teenager in the 90s, so made sense.
Yeah.
Classic stuff.
I don't know if anybody in the audience answered.
Actually, we do have a fun couple little polls of things we're just kind of interested in like hearing about. And again, we'd like to make this kind of interactive because, you know, eventually, hands starting to actually cramp up a little bit. So definitely going fast. So I don't know, Justin, if you want to bring out some of the polls and, you know, kind of see what people are thinking.
Yeah, we'll jump in here. Let's see. So a couple polls here. Let's see. All right, so this is a good one, kind of going back to the scan data itself, which is, so I'll kick these off, which is going to be, do you actively, are you like, what kind of modeling or point cloud collection are you doing? So you're doing terrestrial plans, or, well, in this case, are you doing mobile mapping? We'll assume if you're not doing mobile mapping, then you are doing terrestrial scans, but we'll go ahead and launch this. This should take over the screen so that people can do the poll, and we will wait for people to do results. And then we will go back to Trevor.
I'll say at the rate I'm going at, I think model might almost be done by the time it comes back.
I mean, that's there was no rule that it had to take the entire hour. I don't think I wanted to give you as much time as possible, but I don't think that's going to hurt if we finish up even faster. I will try and catch up on questions as well. Okay. Yeah, so there's a lot of great questions. I just got some catch up here. It looks like we are getting some last few votes in. Do another 30 seconds here. All right, cool. Go ahead and a couple more trickling in. All right, 10 seconds. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good enough. All right, cool. Thank you everybody for jumping in. All right, we'll go ahead and close this. And let's see. So we'll go ahead and jump in. It makes sense for that one. I'll go ahead and share the results here. So this is kind of interesting. We haven't done too many of these polls, but it does make sense that people who are in this call are probably interested in scanning. So so it makes sense that some people are not going to be there, but a lot of people are doing. Let's see, cool. Okay, yeah. So we have a lot of people scanning, and it's kind of a mix here. We'll see that people are interested in the workflow. A lot of people have tried it. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of advantages with mobile workflows, and you know, there's always a back and forth. I will say that from the data usage point of view, as an EdgeWise, you know, from the EdgeWise side, the nice part is we don't care. If the data is good, then we can work well with it. So that's all we care about, and so that's the biggest factor. But there is really a lot of value in the performance for the time, and then you know, some really interesting workflows there. So yeah, so that makes sense. So a lot of people are interested. Some people have used it sometimes. And a pretty good portion are consistently using mobile workflows. So that's, I mean, I'm sure if we did this poll 10 years ago, or even 3 or 4 years ago, that this would be some very different numbers. So it's cool to see how the industry is shifting. So I will go ahead and hide that, and we will go jump back to see what Trevor's up to.
Oh boy.
So Trevor, you might have to share your screen again. Awesome. Okay.
All right.
Cool.
Yep, so we have tanks now, or we have these stacks, so put those in.
Nice.
Yeah, just cranking my way through. So.
Okay. So some questions have come in that I've seen here. I'm gonna go. I need to go back to. So we'll do some more polls here in a little bit. If I could just expand the window and go to meeting. Okay, guess not. Right. This is black bar. Okay, some questions that I've seen. I'm not sure if we've addressed these. This is the tricky part of losing power halfway through the webinar. Black elements are either the straight sections that are kind of temporary objects if they're straight, representing that there's kind of segments of piping. As Trevor goes through the workflow, we will kind of convert those into a single run of piping, kind of a chain.
And then the other curved elements, like those are elbows. So we don't have a visual distinction for like the segments, but that are temporary. But T's, elbows, reducers, valves, flanges, those are going to be black elements. Those will stick around. But those straight sections are kind of like an intermediate connection to put everything together when we do spools. Let's see. Where possible. Proper BIM element. So questions here. So one of the things that we'll kind of briefly mention, and we'll definitely go into more detail specifically for Viva. But the workflow here that Trevor's going to get to is that for piping, what we're doing is Trevor's going and just really worrying about geometry. We're not starting with specs for piping. With the automated pipe extraction, it's going to find as many of the cylinders as it can automatically. And there's some other questions on that, so we'll go into that in a second. But and then Trevor's going to go through and fill in the gaps between anything that wasn't done automatically, either through the automatic extraction or through kind of the Easy Connect workflow. But once we've got kind of the pipe run set, we've got those things set, we will go through a phase where we're going to kind of start finalizing these runs, and that's going to both get the diameter to be consistent across the entire length of that spool, so it's just one diameter. When we're extracting from point clouds, you'll see that there's little mini small variations in the diameter that we get when we're fitting stuff, and that's often just based on point cloud. So instead of starting with saying we're going to do 1 inch or 1 point, like or a 2 centimeter or a 10 centimeter line or anything like that, we are really just trying to get the outside diameter, and then we're going to fit, best fit the diameter based on what we fit in the point cloud, and then we will apply a spec in EdgeWise to set the diameter and also some other levels of intelligence. So depending on the workflow, that will track through. So if you're going and exporting to other software, then it will be native components that's EdgeWise supports. But for E3D, the big question is going to be what sort of geometry. And so we'll kick into that when we get into E3D. But the value here is going to be that it is not going to be as straight up pipes. It's not going to be piping components in E3D. It will be equipment. But we really try to make sure that that equipment is as useful as possible in the implementation. So we'll have a native macro export, and that equipment geometry will be the same hierarchy that we see inside of EdgeWise. So having a spool that's inside of EdgeWise, we call them chains. So there's a chain of post-mark sheet. And that's going to be all of the elbows and segments, any valves and flanges and things like that we create. That's going to be in that spool, and a piece of equipment is going to be a one-to-one match for what we make inside of EdgeWise with all of the kind of underlying data as well. So for our initial implementation for E3D, we're trying to make sure that we get the geometry into E3D effectively. But there's lots of workflows where you can just dump in a step file into E3D. The pain point there is if you do a step file, it's just one blob of geometry. You can't edit it, you can't tweak it, you can't hide individual sections. IFC also works. From what we've seen, it just doesn't like keep the logic correctly, so that you can say, okay, this spool is here, and I can see all the information. I can see the T's, the sub equipment, that the valves and flanges are sub equipment that's in that equipment that I can manage and add data to. So all of these things were really not workflows that we saw as from customer feedback as effective as really trying to dial in a very native implementation of doing that equipment inside of E3D for matching what's inside of EdgeWise. So we'll see examples of that whenever Trevor gets to the export side. And we'll really dig into it more, but that's kind of the high level there for the workflow, just to kind of cover that while we're halfway through. Now, Trevor, we are coming up on about 30 minutes. So I think we started at 11:06. Well, my time zone, but or no, Sam's time zone. So Denver, Mountain Time. So we have I don't know, a couple more minutes here, and then I think we should jump over to structure. So this is the last part of the stretch. Let's see. All right. So I think some other good questions to bring up that I see here are some ones about the point cloud, like how do we extract stuff? So some things you'll see aren't extracted, some things are. it's a little bit tricky. There is a little bit of a black box here. Pulling points, cylinders out of a point cloud when we're looking at the entire point cloud is a difficult mathematic thing. It's a very fancy algorithm our developers spend a lot of time working on. And so the key here is point cloud density. That's really the biggest factor. In a lot of scenarios in point cloud noise, if it's noisy data, we're going to struggle to push stuff out. And so that's why, what's so impressive about the VLX and its ability to really have such crisp data is that there's really low noise. It's good coverage because it's mobile, and so you can walk around and you get lots of coverage very quickly. And they just frankly do a very good job of taking that coverage and really balancing it out across the elements. So we get great coverage, which is one part, and we get good density, consistent density. If you unify your point cloud, if you're in any workflow and you decimate it heavily, that's going to really affect the performance for EdgeWise. So you generally want to stay and maintain that kind of the default scanning that you're doing and maintain that. If you do a heavy decimation and then give it to EdgeWise, it's going to perform worse than if you maintain that density and don't decimate it and give it kind of that original data set. So I believe this VLX data set is the 5 mil export. And we brought it straight from the E57, I believe, and just brought that into EdgeWise at the 5 mil, and this is what comes out. So, with that, that's where the kind of advantage of making sure we have good coverage is really helpful. Past that, some other things you can do. I mean, the railing does get come out. That happens a lot. And diameters are a really good way of filtering that. Looking at the diameter and going through it is like basically searching diameter and deleting stuff that's a specific diameter. Often railing is the same diameter, and it's a good way of filtering things. The clipping tools that Trevor used in the beginning. Also, just point cloud, if you're doing any sort of point cloud cleaning, that can be helpful because it's unified data. So if you cut out that point cloud, as long as you're not decimating, we are able to, it's less point cloud data for us to work with. I will ask this question, and I'm curious to keep an eye out for it in the chat. But what is everyone's thoughts on doing like point cloud segmentation, like cutting out the point cloud or classification? Is that something that EdgeWise should definitely leverage and be able to keep? Are people doing classification or segmentation in the workflows, and getting value out of that? So I'd be really curious to see some questions come in for that one. Let's see. There are a lot of questions. Great. I love that. Okay. So black, yeah. Trying to keep up with this. Okay. I think another poll would be good. So we got some more polls in here.
I'll tell you what. Got one more minute. That'll be 1:45 East Coast. Launch a poll, and that will give you a quick chance to stretch out the fingers.
All right.
Real quick, just to cap it with the piping. That's what we got so far. So I'm just going to do 2 more quick little automated steps. We got the clean pipes. That'll convert the black straight connections over. We'll do a quick little apply standards. I'm just going to go with an ASME spec default, and then we'll go ahead and then launch the poll. We'll do some structure, and then at the end we'll export both of these out to E3D. So I'm gonna rest my hand real quick.
Yeah, great job, Trevor. Yeah, and just so we have a poll here. How long have you been doing modeling? Just as-built documentation. Toss it in. Should have had a longer. I know. I was thinking about that. Okay, we'll see. We'll see the results in a second. Should have had a 15-year in there probably. So we'll see. I have experience in this call. Holy cow. Okay. All right. Keep going. That's cool though. Okay, so we'll give it, so it's coming up for 45 seconds. Give it another 20 seconds, 30 seconds here. It's really just, this is all for Trevor to do some stretching. Okay. Okay, I think we are coming up onto the final number here. So we will go ahead and we're going to close it in 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good enough. And we'll go ahead and share it. So we got a lot of experience in here. That's cool. I think we probably should have had a 10-year in here and see what that was. But yeah, I think there's a lot of people who know what they're doing, been doing it a long time. And that is very cool to see. It's been it's good to see the industry kind of getting that information, and then all these people who are just starting out, there's lots of information out there for you.
It's very cool. Nearly half of the people here, 5+ years.
Yeah, that's multiplying math there. That's a lot of years of experience. So that's very cool. Okay, so a couple pieces here. So what we'll do now is we're going to give Trevor a second, and then Trevor is going to jump into the structure side. So structure is the other portion that we're going to show here. Oh, he's taking his jacket off. It's getting serious now. This is where, so EdgeWise does a couple different scopes of work. So we're focusing on structural steel and concrete as well as piping. Because this is focused on E3D, we do have other modeling packages like ducting systems, cable trays, and some basic wall implementations. But the focus for today is all about the piping and kind of plant and process, which is a lot of steel and a lot of pipes. So for the structure side, we are going through, and this is catalog based. Now, one thing I want to point out and just kind of talk about briefly from the E3D workflow, the cool thing is that when you export to E3D, it's going to be native GenSec steel. So we really try to make sure that if we're going into, when we go with steel out, it's going in as intelligent components. So for this, we have all of our standard catalogs in here, and the catalog is going to go and basically map one-to-one, and we can kind of show that, what's going to go into E3D. Trevor very quickly did his first I-beam, which is just kind of drawing a box and saying, EdgeWise figured out. We can see a couple things here. So he's got the European standard. This is a plant in Europe, so we want to make sure that we line up there, I believe, or at least the steel lines up with it. We want to make an I-beam, and we basically said auto fit, which is that EdgeWise automatically figures out the best size element and fits it to the point cloud. So Trevor doesn't need to be a steel expert to accurately model steel. He's just saying, I want to make an I-beam. He can go jump into that view really quickly to see that 2D perspective of like how the points are all lined up. Those are all points along the entire length of that element. So that's especially impressive for the basically when you look at that and you see that, that's tens of thousands, if not a million points right there, just on the length of that I-beam. And we were able to see how clean the data is, because that's a lot of data over the length of that beam. If we take a small little section, we'll only see those points, and it's very clean there as well. But the ability to go through and really figure out the dimensions and fit that quickly, you can make tweaks. He's modeling very quickly. So think about, your workflow. If you're using this, if you're trying to model in a point cloud in your design software, how does that feel? Is that something you can, jump into that view really quickly and just instantly see if it's a good fit? You don't have to know, you can just say, draw a box and say, all right, figure out the size for me, and I don't need to know. So that's a big advantage for the structural steel. So Trevor's flying now. Let's see. This one's a good one. Okay, so relevant to this, this is another poll I want to toss in here that is going to cover, what your workflow is for doing as-built modeling. So we see that a lot of people are scanning. We see people have been scanning for a long time. So I'd like to, I'm going to pop another poll up here to see, how you make as-built, as-built. Like, what's your process? So we'll go ahead and launch this. And see what the results are. Because we are, obviously very curious to see if there's any EdgeWise users out there. All right, do another 30 seconds here. Here we go. Interesting. Okay, well, I have questions. I hope we get some more questions. We can maybe get some answers in the chat there. We'll try and keep up. There's a lot of chat questions coming in. But we are pretty much right at the end there. Okay, so I think we will close it in 3, 2, 1, go. Okay, let's go ahead and show you. So interesting stuff here. We got a lot of other software, which I'm very curious what that other software is. If you feel comfortable, I mean, I'd love to know what you're doing it. We like to know what the tools are out there. There's a lot of people doing modeling. Love to see the EdgeWise users. That's always cool. At this point, hopefully you're seeing, if you're not an EdgeWise user, that there's some very fast tools out there that exist and what they can do. And the manually doing it in E3D, I mean, that's a big question. You know, we're pretty familiar now with it. You know, the question will be, does this look easier than trying to do it manually inside of E3D? Is this look faster? Does this look like it could save you a lot of time? So we'll see what those, you know, what shows up in E3D. We're going to open it up and we'll take a look. That's kind of the big question. Yeah, so you get some interesting spread. But yeah, we're very curious on the other software. It's a lot of other. At this point, that's a good question for going through and seeing what's out there. Okay, so go back to Trevor. Let's see what he got. We are in the,
So I am just chugging along right now. So I hope, forgive any of the facial expressions on the webcam. That is me going through and doing this. So
I'm just impressed you took off your sweatshirt without even messing up your headphones at all.
yeah,
Mine would have flown off.
All right.
I can tell it's getting game time.
Yep. Yeah. We'll shoot for trying to kick that out in the next minute or
like
two.
2 more minutes.
Yeah, but it should be quick to do it. We'll keep going with questions here. So the building geometry would be walls, just kind of standard, very stock walls. Insulated pipe panel. That's a good question. Insulated pipe we do outside diameter. We are only able to see the outside diameter. It is possible for the user to specify, you know, the inside diameter of like what the actual pipe is, but because the point cloud data only has insulation, we're going to initially draw insulation. The important part is we get you the center line. So the center line and all the workflow. So you're going to see it if you make the diameter set. It will be the diameter. It'll be in the right position. It'll just be shrunky, but you will need to kind of set that correctly for what because we can only see the outside diameter.
Hey, Justin, I can actually help answer that a little bit from like a laser scanning perspective.
Yeah.
So one of the things we used to do for my clients when I was project managing these things is we would ask for some insulation pieces to be removed for the scan so that we would have those outer diameters. And then, of course, they'd put them back on. So specifically for the date of the scan, they'd have them removed and then put them back on after we're done. That way you can successfully model those.
Nate, I'm sure you get the joke a lot of times throughout the day, but any word on making a fancy X-ray scanner or something that can see through insulation? Huh?
That'd be great.
Cool. I mean,
that's
going crazy these days. So.
Yeah, that's a different level of easy. Probably in the future, I'm sure that's something that we may see, hopefully in our lifetimes, right?
Oh, yeah, all right. All right, I'm gonna call it. So I managed to get this whole upper structure done. I think that's pretty fair for what, about 45 minutes? Well, okay, one more. All right.
It's like 8 minutes. So he's doing some extensions here, we're pushing it through. Yeah.
Well done.
Trevor, I do want, right before you hit export, just for structure, can you go ahead and open the structure standard, or the table? Or not the smart sheet, sorry.
Okay, yep, so let me go ahead and open up the smart sheet right here, and again, un momento as I pull this over.
So,
there we go.
Yep, just some key things I want to point out for structure before we export this out. So the specs are in. So in this case, we have the kind of EU specs. So some of these in the default spec are not exportable just because they're not in our E3D project specifically, which is the default ASP standard project, but you can basically create your own custom catalog, bring that into EdgeWise very easily. It's all automatic for just export and import, and then we want to make sure that we get top of steel correct when we're inside of E3D. So we can see that here. We'll see that in the results when we actually push it over. Trevor, go ahead and hit the exports. You'll see when we do the exports, the key here for E3D is that they are native macros. We're just doing PML macros straight from EdgeWise. These are the standard text files. So the cool thing here for E3D is that one, that's just a really powerful tool in general. So some of the specs in the European one don't line up with our specific projects, so they're not going to play nice. But we can go through and basically you can use custom standards to make that work very easily. For the macro, it's just a text file. So if you want to add extra information, if you want to tweak it, if you want to add to it your own properties, your own information, any logic you want to add into the export from EdgeWise, it's an open text file. So that can be really helpful.
So what do you think? Piping first?
Yeah, let's go ahead and do the equipment import here. So as I mentioned, this is going to be equipment, right? So we are not, for E3D specifically, as of right now, we are just doing, we're doing equipment objects, but the key here is that they are, we try to keep as much logic to make them as valuable as possible. So, when we do a valve or a flange or a T or reducer, it's going to be a sub equipment that's in that piece of equipment. We have the flange, it's classic. You should be able to just drop it in on the zone.
Yep, webinar.
But we wanted to make it so, like, if you're doing a renovation and you just need to know what's there and you want to add some basic information, you got to give it the custom name. You can go through and you can easily clear it out, and you can remove that spool that you're working and replace that. You can have it so that you have all that information really quickly created of everything else that's there, and it's really easy for you to visually and go through it and actually set it. So here you can give it a custom name for whatever you want. This is going to go to every piece of equipment, and what's key in here is 3D view.
Okay, now this is where I'm trying to think, where is it now?
Can you go to expand it out so we can see the equipment?
What am I doing? No.
Yeah. Yeah, and then you can go to 3D view.
Okay.
And let's see, add. I'm not sure if it's already added or not.
Pipe.
Double click with the scroll wheel.
They're here.
Here.
Where are they?
We'll try and add the steel in, see if it jumps you to it.
Okay.
And just drag and drop the, yeah.
Yep.
Do that. So we'll go look at it in a second, but do a structure. So these are going to be native Gen 6. Let's see. Right click, zoom extends. Is it the bottom one? It's plus. Yeah. Center view. Yeah.
Nothing has happened.
Oh, you have the structure. You have the structure selected, so you need to click on the equipment, or not, just like in the table. No, like you have the structural framework element selected.
Oh, okay.
And then you can do, yeah, and then do right click. There we go.
Oh, where'd it go? I saw it.
This is classic. Did you add? I feel like you added there. Control Z.
I swear, I see it. It's right there.
It's very tiny. I see it so close. When you do the right click and oh, we got beautiful instructions. Okay, go to primitives.
Up. There it is.
Is this? Yes, there it is. Okay. All right. Honestly, I was thinking it's industrial plant. Okay, great. So let's go look at some stuff and just kind of click on one of those runs so we can see it real quick in the last couple of seconds here. So specifically like a normal pipe section. So if we look and you zoom in on it, ideally.
Sure, if I can zoom in.
Yes. Welcome to E3D. A great comment. Yeah, E3D is really complicated. We love it, but you know, it's heavy learning curve. So just Trevor, can you expand out the table there? Yeah. So the key here is the sub equipment and the T's and things are set. Can you drop in the structure so we can take a see if that gets a little better? Basically this is the set. Now, while Trevor is figuring that out, I'm going to hit a poll in the last seconds, which is when you go to E3D, what is the level of detail and kind of intelligence that you actually need? So I'm going to jump this in and we'll try and catch the last few here. Well, Trevor tries to get the zoom extends box set, but we're really curious. So right now we've done this equipment, right? So we wanted to make it, it's hard to see what we did exactly, but you know, we really try to make it so that if we're using the equipment and using EdgeWise, you can really understand where everything is, you know, the piping and steel and everything extremely quickly. You can work with it really easily because you can add description information, you can modify it, you can tweak it, it's native. That's set, and then, you know, what do we need for next? Because obviously this is our first release for E3D. This is the first time we really put EdgeWise in a position to do E3D workflows. And we want to understand, you know, what do we need to do next, if that's intelligent piping or not. So, and what kind of information is needed there. Okay, so we'll give that another 20 seconds or so to kind of get that last information in. Let's see, what about steel? Yep, insulated piping. I'm trying to catch, there's a lot of questions. I know we didn't get to all of them. We will be following up with everyone for the questions. So we will basically be working to do that. Let's see, standard size. Yes, auto fitting for steel is a standard size based on whatever spec you have selected. Just kind of throw these in here. All right, so we'll go ahead and close the spec, the poll here, and share it. And this makes sense. So geometry only equipment. So primitives. Some people just need it as like, I just need something. Equipment seems to, you know, have some approach, but a lot of people need that native elements, and that's good to know. So that's noted from the product management side. We definitely appreciate the input when it comes to the E3D information.
I actually got a text from one of my contacts saying that he wanted the native piping as well, fully intelligent.
Fair enough. I'm in, and that's we're brand new to E3D. Everyone who's using E3D, I hope you understand that it's quite a undertaking to get started with. It's incredibly capable, and we're learning. But you know, this is the big question that we wanted to know, and we have. I'll end this with going back to the final results. Hopefully, that Trevor's found, maybe question mark.
I can look at it, but no one can touch it yet.
Okay. Can you go to the attributes for this one so we can take a look?
So,
I will, if you go to attributes.
Yep, it's on the other web. Yep.
Yeah, so I think actually we want actually can you go to properties? That's a better view for it. Because it does show it's a gen sec for the steel. Yeah, so it is native European steel. If you open the reference, if you hit the little checkbox thing in the reference, you can see it's native component. We have top of steel, so we're trying to do the structural steel correctly. So steel is intelligent. But I will end this with saying that, you know, one of the things that we will be following up with people on is if you are interested in talking with me, the product manager of EdgeWise, so that I can better understand the requirements and the workflows that, you know, are really going to help you get your plant model into E3D as intelligent components. You know, we're actively want to know how we should be doing that, what the right way to do that is. So if you're interested in giving us feedback on how we should be doing that, we are all ears. So clearly from the poll, it's something we should be evaluating, and we want to make sure we do it right. We'll follow up on that. As far as other exports, yeah, we can go to STEP, we can go to Revit, we can go to Plant 3D. So there's other things we can do in this, but at the end of the day, we wanted to really focus on Viva. And yeah, so there's a lot of flexibility, but hopefully this is a really interesting webinar. Hopefully, some adventure here. It's still raining, by the way, but hopefully this is a good insight into what EdgeWise can do. It's purpose-built software. Really good to show the showcase with what it can do with NavVis data and how fast and how good that data is. So thank you, Nate, for joining us.
Yeah, and just real quick,
yeah,
Nate, are you going to be at GeoWeek? Are you going to be at GeoWeek in Denver?
Yeah, I'm going to be at GeoWeek, absolutely.
Yep. So everyone on the webinar want to, or go ahead, Nate.
I was going to see what booth, we're booth 809.
Sweet. No, so everyone on the webinar, again, definitely would love to see everyone at GeoWeek. I myself will be there, so come swing by the ClearEdge booth. I'm more than happy to talk about EdgeWise, and if anyone out there is an E3D user, we'll trade E3 or EdgeWise tips for E3D lessons, just saying. But also come swing by the NavVis booth. Nate will be there, and so any questions about the NavVis system, please take those to Nate. Again, all of us are more than happy to answer any questions for everyone.
Yeah, you can't see me now, but I'm a giant ginger man, so hard to miss.
The NavVis, they put something in the drinks, the coffee, because all the NavVis guys are, they're up there. They're tall. You can spot them across the room.
We'll play 4-on-4 basketball for a VLX if you want. You got to buy it if you lose, though.
Oh,
ooh, there you go. That's that's the chance. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, everybody. I really appreciate the questions. This was a fun one. Sorry I disappeared there. Hopefully my face wasn't too weird when I cut out at the last second. We really appreciate it, and we will follow up with everybody. And again, if you are somebody who needs that intelligent piping in E3D, we are all ears. We're looking for people to give us feedback on the workflow, what we should be making, and how we can take what you see in EdgeWise, which I hope you recognize as a very fast and powerful workflow, and really get that into E3D as the full intelligence that you need for your project to really speed things up. And I think one person, I don't know if I said this, we save 70% of time on modeling very consistently. That's very easy to consider that we do that all the time, just purely hours. I'm not sure, honestly, it might be more for E3D though. So we'll see how that shakes out over time as we learn more. But thanks everybody. Thank you, Trevor. Thank you, Nate. Very much appreciated, and have a great rest of your day, everybody.
all right, sounds good.
Thanks
all
for
right,
having
take
me.
care, everyone. Bye.
Bye.
All right, cheers.